Good to go, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Time being 6:30 p.m, I'll call the meeting to order. In the event of emergency, the building may be evacuated. You'll be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather in the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is a council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given and the area is deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any person present with a disability to vacate the building. Item 1.1, apologies of absence. Mr Chief Executive Officer, are there any?
None this evening, sir.
Thank you very much. 1.2, live streaming and recording. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at the council meeting that you ensure that you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all time. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of the council meeting. A recording of the council meeting may be made for administration purposes. Acknowledgement country. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would like to pay respects to both elders, both past and present, and pay my respects to all other Indigenous and non-Indigenous people here with us here tonight. Item 1.4, declaration of interest. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter for consideration at this council meeting? Yes, Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I believe it's item 4.4 and item 4.5 with regard to donations to the Royal Flying Doctor Service. I declared an interest at the last meeting due to the fact that I sit on the board of Marathon Health, which does a lot of work with the Royal Flying Doctor Service. And in the matter of the donation part, as the chair of OCTEC, we donated $5,000 to that particular event. So I'll step out of those two discussions on a pecuniary interest matter.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got two interests to declare. The first is a non-significant, non-pecuniary, item 2.1 of the Finance Policy Committee. Recommendation to mainly, my mother sings in Cantar Choir, so even though it's non-significant, non-pecuniary, I'll leave the chamber for that item. The other one is a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in item 5.3 of the general paper. I just live nearby the some of the land that's being reclassified, so I'll stay in the chamber for that one because it doesn't affect me.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Power.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare a conflict of interest in the finance policy, 2.1.2, the funds for the 10 for 10, as I am an ambassador of that wonderful program. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mayor. I would like to declare a significant non-pecuniary interest in item 4.2 of the council meeting, notice of motion, election priorities. I'm volunteering in support of the campaign for Ben Parker, the Greens candidate, and it seems a pretty obvious conflict that a discussion around the priorities of the election. I obviously have an interest in advocating the platform of that candidate. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor
4.5.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Mr Mayor, I have two. The first is in item 5.3, classification of the land, so the lot 300 DP 1193909 Carwoola Drive. I own the property next door to this and I live 2 doors up from it, so I won't vote on that one. Second one is the Planning and Development Committee item 2.3, lot 218 Hawke Lane, as my husband's company has done work on this site.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy.
4.5.
What is your conflict?
Non-pecuniary interest.
Can you use the mic, please, Councillor Duffy? I couldn't hear. Thank you, sorry.
Yeah, 5.5, which is the rescission motion, and as the event is on my property, I won't be taking any involvement in it at all.
Yeah, Councillor Peterson, sorry.
You 4.1, non-significant, non-pecuniary, in that I do provide some teaching to University of Sydney Clinical School, but I don't think I'll stay in the room and vote. Finance 2.2, my family will enter the event. I'm sure I will have a goal in there somehow, but I don't think it affects my ability to vote. 4.5, given that I'm part of the rescission motion, I don't feel I can objectively decide whether the motion is heard or not, because I admit
Been done once before, councillor. Been done once before.
Oh, okay, right. Well, even so, I'll step out for deciding whether it gets heard or not, and I'll come back in if it is.
Can say that again.
So 4.5 is a rescission motion,
Yes.
but the motion's understanding was put in after the deadline. So we're going to have to decide as a council whether we hear the motion or not. I don't think I should have a vote in whether we hear it or not. Decide that we will indeed hear the.
Can I just seek clarification as to why you wouldn't be able to part of the voting for the rescission motion? Whether it's heard or not?
Probably got a
whether it's heard or
vested
not.
interest to be heard.
From me.
Well,
Green interest is a matter for you, councillors. This is a tricky one, because then one would come to expect that the three signing councillors for the rescission motion would follow your lead. Kind of very unusual.
May I speak?
I'll hear. Yeah, I'll hear from the
Yeah, I
Genesis
am
first and
neutral
then to
on
you.
it. Got nothing else to say. We're
Nothing else?
neutral on it. We will take your lead.
Okay, Councillor Whitten.
Mr. Mayor, it wouldn't be any different than if I move a motion, then that's the same. I'm debating for a or an against a motion. I don't have a pecuniary or a personal interest in it, so I don't believe councillor. And again, I do agree with the CEO. It's an individual choice of the councillor, but you wouldn't be in breach of any local government.
My peers don't think it's an issue.
opinion.
I'll take.
Thank you. Councillor Judge.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I have a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in 5.3. I also live in the area, but I'm happy to stay in the room for that one.
Thank you. Have I missed any councillors?
Nope, you're good to go.
Being none, we'll move on to open forum, and the council will now adjourn for the conduct of the open forum. When addressing the council, speakers at the public forum must comply with the Code of Meeting Practice and all other relevant council codes, policies and procedures. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the council's code of conduct, or making other potentially defamatory statements. I will ask all of you to be respectful of this chamber and all of us here tonight. Now we have 6 registered speakers. Our first speakers are on Finance Policy Committee 2.1 in brackets 3, small donations, to donate $2,300 to the Orange North Rotary Club for the higher cost of the Function Centre for educating local children on science and education. Our first speaker is Mr. John McKenzie from Rotary Club of North Orange, and if required, Mr. Doug Allen will join should councillors have any questions. Mr. John McKenzie, would you like to come to the lectern? Just before you start, sir, I'd like to introduce you to the councillors. We have Councillor Whitten, Deputy Mayor Councillor Tammy Greenhalgh, Councillor McDonald, Councillor Power, Councillor Mallard. Come across the other side, we have Councillor Ruddy, Councillor Stedman, Judge, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Kinghorn, and Councillor Peterson. So you have 5 minutes to speak. Would you like to go? Just give us a moment, we'll hand those documents out, sir. Is
Okay.
it just the one?
Just the one.
Thank you.
So on behalf of the Rotary Club of Orange North, thank you for the opportunity to discuss our club's application for a grant from the Small Grants Project. A major focus of our club is on projects that involve young people, and one of our projects is the Science and Engineering Challenge, which we are conducting in conjunction with the University of Newcastle on Thursday and Friday, the 3rd and 4th of April. And this will be the 18th year that we've conducted this challenge. The challenge is a day-long competition designed to provide Year 10 or Year 9 students with a positive experience of science and engineering. A set of 8 activities at individual stations are spread amongst the students from each school in small groups with a time limit to carry out the activity that they are given, and each group is scored on their outcome. Some activities run for the full day and others go for a half day. The half-day activities are swapped to a new group of students after lunch. All the materials that are required to conduct the activity are provided along with instructions, and creativity is encouraged to achieve the final outcome. A couple of examples. Firstly, the bridge is a full-day activity where a group has to build a light and strong model bridge to carry gold ingots, very appropriate, from one side of the test rig to the other, using a fixed quantity of balsa, cardboard, wooden sticks, string, masking tape and paper. Testing of the bridges using increasing weights in a little trolley that crosses the bridge occurs as the last activity of the day, and it happens in front of the whole group of the students that are there. And the winner is the bridge that supports the highest weight. A half-day example is flight, where groups design and build a balsa glider to travel, firstly, a substantial distance, secondly, to land on a specific landing zone, and thirdly, to hit a target. So they have those 3 things to do. The glider is scored based on how they achieve each of those 3 of those targets. So while providing a challenge to complete the task in the time allowed and the pressure to score points which accumulate for the final school totals, which determine the winning school, the students learn the principles of science and engineering, and they have a lot of fun and they really enjoy what they're doing. This year we're actually adding an additional program for primary school students on the day following the senior students. So that's the Friday. For the senior student day, the schools involved this year are Orange High, Orange Christian School, James Sheehan, Orange Anglican Grammar, Canobolas High, Kinross Wallaroy and Redbend College from Forbes. For the primary schools, Nashdale, Clergate and Mullion Creek are attending. As I said, this is the first time we've offered that event. And other schools have indicated interest, but they just can't make it this time. On the day, assistance is provided by Rotarians and former Rotarians, university students, teachers from each of the school and staff from the University of Newcastle. And we've been lucky to actually, I think, have the services of the Mayor to help judge the final. And also we have an engineer from Newmont to also help out. In the past, we've used school auditoriums to hold the event at no cost. This has become more difficult with school programs using those facilities and our need to use the location over 3 days to set up and 2 activity days. Hence, we've actually decided to utilise the function centre, which provides the space needed and a central location for the schools. Students are not charged to attend the event, and Rotary covers all the costs for the event. The total cost for the whole thing can be up to $9,000 from our funds. And so our request to the Council is to support the event and to increase the number of local students with a better understanding and interest in science and engineering by providing the grant that we've applied for. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mackenzie. I just have one question. First of all, thank you for the wonderful job that Rotary does in our community. But I think it's also my understanding that Rotary, in the next few years, are looking to hold a national event in Orange. Is that correct?
That's correct. I was
Can you
going
tell
to
us
ask
a bit about
Doug.
that quickly?
Sorry?
Would you like to tell us a bit about that quickly?
Well, you go, Doug.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for listening to us. We do have a long-term plan for the Science and Engineering Challenge. Well, long-term, 3 years. And that culminating in running a national final here in Orange in 2027. And to that end, I would like a councillor here tonight to amend the motion that we be granted the waiver of fees for this event, to make the amendment that we will be waive the fees for the next 3 years. That's 25, 26 and 27. And in 27, if we get the national final, we will be having it twice. It'll be our local final in April, and the national final will be the end of October, early November, after the state finals have been. So I'd like a councillor to take the plunge and support us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Roddy. You speak in your microphone, Councillor.
The time frame being 3 years and twice in 27, does that mean you'd like it to be waived 4 times? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, gentlemen. Our next speaker, our next 2 speakers, are regards to Planning and Development Committee item 2.5, Development Application DA 578/2024, in brackets number 1, lots 21, 23, 25, Edward Street, Orange. And our speaker is Mr. Ryan Dobble.
Thank you, Councillor.
You have 5 minutes, sir.
Can everyone hear me? Yeah, perfect. Thank you, councillors. Good evening, councillors. My name is Ryan Doble, and I am a resident at 44 Elsham Avenue. I want to address today the development application DA 578/2024, brackets 1, and provide context for why we wish the site to be left either undisturbed or developed into a space for use by the community. There are 26 residences with direct lines of sight to the land in question, which forms a visual green space enjoyed by the residents of the neighbourhood. The sounds of birds and frogs can be heard, creating a pleasant and relaxing atmosphere. For myself, this land is of great significance due to the fact my partner, Rebecca, is disabled, and due to her limited mobility, one of the few spaces she can enjoy is the land adjacent our house. Whether it's being able to look out and see the animals that graze there, listen to the sounds of the wildlife, or walk along the boundary of the land, having the space is of great personal significance to us and provides a great deal of well-being to our daily life. Her conditions make travelling even short distances difficult at times, and the only other nearby green space is Leon Healy Park, which sits at such a steep incline that she would be unable to walk up it even a few metres, and I believe there is still a burnt-out car sitting there. That land opposite our house is not only visually pleasant, it is a vital part of our day-to-day management of her conditions, as recommended by her GP and psychologist. And I know we're not the only ones enjoying it. I have on multiple occasions witnessed families with young children pull up across from our property to admire the horses that graze there, and throughout the day it is common to see people taking a walk past our property to enjoy the green space. This is an area that improves the quality of life in our neighbourhood, and I have no doubt that its destruction will have a substantial negative impact on both ourselves and on others. Additionally, one of her conditions causes difficulty breathing, and so I am also concerned about the impact of developing this land will have on her health, and also the health of our neighbours, which include the elderly and small children. The development of the stadium has already caused a noticeable increase of dust pollution in our area, and the development of several large warehouses directly adjacent to a residential area will surely have a negative impact on air quality and will be something we are forced to live with. Furthermore, during construction and once completed, I'm concerned the warehouses will generate further noise, potentially in the early and late hours of the evening, which will negatively impact the residential environment of our street and interrupt the sleep of those who live there. Finally, I wish to address a few key points from the development application that I consider to be erroneous. The application suggests that the area has no European or Aboriginal heritage. It was once the site of the sale yards, and stock routes often followed Aboriginal paths through the land. It implies the natural environment is in poor condition, yet the presence of birds and frogs suggests the natural environment is actually thriving. It is also one of the only places that the East Orange Creek still runs above ground. It is difficult to see how bulldozing the creek and putting in a drainage pipe won't destroy the ecosystem of the birds and frogs that dwell there. Only the council's arborist appears to have been consulted, though I could be wrong. And we believe an independent review would help determine the value of the natural habitat, which contains native species such as blue-banded bees. The application also says our neighbourhood has an industrial character. I would challenge any of the councillors to find anyone who lives there that says they feel their residence is industrial in character. It is at best incorrect and at worst an insult to those who live adjacent to this land. We oppose the development of this area on the above grounds, and more detail is outlined in our submission to council. And we prefer it was instead developed into a walkable wetlands for the neighbourhood, as we believe would have been done if we lived in a wealthy area on the other side of the train tracks. We believe the approval of this application would make a statement about how council feels regarding their constituents in Glenroy and their living conditions. We appreciate everything the council does do for us in Glenroy, but it is easy to feel forgotten about sometimes in the neighbourhood. We urge council to carefully consider the approval of this application, or at least the modification to remove the lots through which the East Orange Creek flows, as we do not actually oppose the development on the western side of the Edward Street. That sits away from residential areas. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Doble. Our next speaker is Mr. Warwick Westcott of On Track Ag Proprietary Limited. Mr. Westcott, you have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Won't take 5 minutes, not knowing really this whole process. So Paul and I, Paul from Hague Truck Repairs next door, are just really here to reinforce our objection to the DA 578. In a nutshell, in 1975, when our building was made, there was no provisions for council required for of customers and staff to our block, and there's certainly no room for our customers and staff to park there now. Yes, we sell tractors and farm machinery, but we are a retail business. We have utes and trucks and all sorts of things pulling up out the front all the time. So just given the plan that we've presented, which is the present DA, we both feel it's just not acceptable this day and age to be so small. There's not enough vision, I guess, in relation to the area of the truck turning circles and that sort of thing. They need to be a lot bigger. In our objection, we provided what we have in Bathurst at our other shop in Bathurst. The turning radius, or diameter, I should say, is 42 metres, not 25 metres. So 42 metres gives adequate parking. A truck can still turn there very easily, and all those problems sort of go away. Given that there's a lot of land down there to be available, I don't think it'd be all that difficult to just redesign some of that slightly. Also, opposite, basically, Paul's building next door, where the line of trees are that are all going to be knocked out. I also still feel there's plenty of provision to be able to put car parking bays in that area. So, in a nutshell, we're just reinforcing our objection to that DA, really, and if you'd please consider that, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Westcott. Next two speakers are on Planning Development Committee Item 2.3, Development Application DA 218/2015 in brackets 5, Lot 218 Hawkes Lane. Our first speaker is Mr. John Cole from Messenger Cole Solicitors, and Mr. Cole is joining us online.
Okay, technically challenged as I am. Hopefully I'm there. Thank you very much. You probably know we do have the office in Orange, but I'm down in Sydney, so thanks a lot for letting me appear on Teams. The site is part of the planned urban release to achieve increased housing and building activity. It's recommended for refusal, and I'm asking the council for deferral to fix up the mistake or the misunderstanding which is behind the reason for refusal. Briefly, where it's up to, all the works have been done. It's stage 8. The other stages are being delivered. Most of the blocks are sold. They're waiting to settle. Some of the people have even gone and sold their places and are renting to be able to get into their new places, and a number of building contracts have been leased on it. The problem, if I can just take you briefly to page 25 of your report, which is, I say, very comprehensive, well written, etc. But if you look at that, you'll see that on that report there's a red strip of land. That's between our road, which is constructed, and the neighbour's property. And the council, quite rightly, has said that's a ransom strip. And in my experience as a town planner as well, he's dead set right, and that's a mistake. And it arose because originally there was meant to be 28 metres of road reserve on this land and the other 28 on the land next door. But the old lady that owned that didn't want to do any development. So it was negotiated with the council to move the road reserve and make it larger on our client's block. Unfortunately, this plan doesn't represent that. It was always their intention. It was their mistake. And look, I spoke to the Director of Planning today, Mark, and he was very professional, very helpful. We're working on a new plan. We're quite clearly happy to dedicate that land, and quite clearly, hopefully, I think there is only 3 grounds to refusal. One of them is about economic development, orderly and economic. The other one's about objectives of the Act. And both of those are solved if we give you that land. So what I'd ask is that a councillor could move and somebody could second the motion when this comes up to defer the matter. The plans are being fixed up as we speak. The extra 8.4 metres of width will be dedicated to the councillor's road reserve, and let's hope that people can then get on, settle their purchases, build their new homes and start paying rates to help with your budgetary discussions later this evening, as I understand. Obviously, I'll take any questions, and thank you very much for your consideration. And as I said, it's clearly accepted by the client that mix-up has arisen in that past, and it's their problem, and they just want to solve it, get on with this. As you can see, the DA's dated 2015, so the whole thing's been going on for a while, and getting the housing happening out there is in everybody's interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. And in light of this matter being deferred, is there any questions of Mr. Cole, councillors? Being none, we have a second speaker, Mr. McKilliffe of Orange Enterprises, number 1, Proprietary Limited. Sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, councillors, staff and members of the public. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I represent Oakstand and Orange Enterprises number 1, the adjoining owner at 12 to 20 Shirley Road, otherwise known as Alchemy. Oakstand are established in Orange. We have an office here, we have a staff member here, we're active in the community, and we're here for the long haul. We wish to thank the staff for the thorough assessment report and the recommendation. We support the recommendation for refusal. When we purchased the property in 2021, we relied upon the existing approval for lot 218 Hawke Lane that approved the part construction of the northbound carriageway upon lot 218. At the same time, we took on the responsibility to deliver the completion of the road with a northbound bicycle lane, parking lane and curb and gutter our responsibility on our property. We also wish to draw to Council's attention that the proponent is the applicant for a planning proposal, PP 2023-45, which the Council has resolved to approve and is in the final stages of finalisation. The PP will grant the applicant an additional 5 to 7 lots by rezoning the public open space on Hawke Lane, which was previously to be dedicated to Council. There's been no VPA offered by the applicant for this uplift, and no additional public benefit provided. Given the uplift afforded to the developer, it would seem unreasonable that the developer now seeks to remove the obligation to deliver the completion of Joseph Drive on their land, as required under DA 2018-2015. As adjoining owner, we've corresponded with the applicant on a number of occasions, offering access to our land to facilitate the construction of the works, to which we've had no reply. If this application is approved, it would set a precedent for other developers to circumvent their obligations under a development approval. While we support the refusal of the modification, in the interests of a path forward and ensuring the completion of the construction of Joseph Drive, which is in the public's interest, we would support the bonding of the works by the applicant and the dedication of the land to allow construction of the works by council. Failure of the applicant to deliver the completion of the works, including the extension of services to our property as required under the development approval, will hinder the orderly servicing and development of land in the Shirley release area in accordance with the Shirley DCP. As Mr. Cole has proposed, we would be happy with the option to dedicate. However, Mr. Cole has not addressed the question of who is paying to construct that portion of the road, which is currently his client's obligation. So thank you for your time and consideration. I'm happy to address any questions if required. Our proposal would address the payment for the construction of those works, which would require the applicant to bond the cost of the delivery of that work, which could then be undertaken by council if dedicated. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions of Mr. McAuliffe? Okay, there being none, the council will now resume.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. I know this is not in accordance with practice, but could I ask that a councillor move that I be allowed to respond
sorry,
to that?
Mr. Cole. You
Run the
cannot.
process. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Can you mute Mr. Cole, please, Nicole? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to item number 2, mayoral minutes, item 2.1, a regional cities board meeting held on the 20th of February 2025. I'll move that the mayoral minutes.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Discussion with regards to the mayoral minutes? There being none, I'll have a show of hands. I'll put the motion for. Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item number 3, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. There's a recommendation on page 15. That's item 3.1, minutes of the ordinary meeting held at Orange City Council on the 18th of March 2025. Can I have somebody move and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Mallard and seconded by Councillor McDonald.
Just a matter arising, if I may, Mr. Mayor. Just a correction. On page 17, item 1.4, I've been promoted to the board of the Royal Flying Doctor Services, which I'm really grateful for, but it's not true. When I left the room the other day, I mentioned that that I had the reason I was leaving that particular debate was that I sit on the board of Marathon Health and that Octec had also donated funds to that particular item. So it just needs a clarification of taking out that I sit on the board of the Royal Flying Doctors. Yep.
Noted. Shame.
Shame, it is, Mr. CEO. I'm happy to take the role if they do offer it.
Thank you, councillor. Any other discussion? Now put the motion to show of hands for. Unanimous. Policy committees. The council meeting will now adjourn for the conduct of their policy committees. I will now hand over to Councillor McDonald for Planning and Development Committee. Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll open up the Planning and Development Policy Committee meeting with the time being 7:04. So we've got declarations of interest from Councillor Kinghorn. Is there anyone else in PDC? Nope. Okay, cool. Yeah, I can't. Alrighty. Item 2.1, items approved under delegated authority of council. Recommendation is on page 5.
Recommendation, sorry.
Moved by Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Greenhalgh. Any discussion? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise a hand. Thank you. Unanimous. Alrighty. Item 2.2 is the development application DA 96 Franklin Road. So this is a debate about the consent of it. It's just making the wording.
I'll
of the
move the
consent.
recommendation for approval to remove the tree.
Thank you, Councillor
Chair.
Whitten, and seconded by Councillor Ruddy. Any discussion? All those in favour, raise a hand. Against? Councillor Power and Councillor Mallard were against.
Kinghorn.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Kinghorn, sorry. Alrighty. Look, item 2.3, I'm going to move that we defer this to the next PDC. Okay, sorry. Thank you. Alrighty. So, given everything we've heard, I'm going to move that we defer this till the next PDC meeting to allow time for the change. Thank you. I think Councillor Peterson was happy to second me. Any discussion?
The question, Chair.
Sure, Councillor Whitten.
To the Director through you. Director, was this prepared? I recall we had a master plan or something for that area. Do we have a master plan for the old
Purely subdivision?
Yeah.
Three. Chair is
we're talking about this item that was just spoke about. My bad. I'm talking about the sale yards.
may also request that consideration be not just to a PDC. It depends on how we go with. So it's another council meeting. It might be better to go to that one. Just depends on how much by the applicant to us to consider. The main one. So it depends whether it's specifically a thing. We know that the applicant in this case is pretty keen to get the subdivision certificate released so they can get those blocks out to the market. Keep an eye on.
I'm actually going to disagree, but up for more discussion on it if everyone else wants to discuss it.
There's another question through you, Chair. Now that I'm on the right
item.
Yeah. Does the deferral meet the original compliance of the development application as put by the gentleman who spoke?
Mr. Cole was spoken to Mr. Cole today, and he's only just been brought into this application and seen the application. It's recommended a way that could go forward, so he doesn't depart from, because we haven't determined the application. It's still able to council after the.
Let's ask a point of clarification.
Of course you can.
Is my understanding that both both parties have asked for a deferment?
Yes.
So I'm a bit confused as to why you're saying that you don't want to support the deferment, or?
No, I'm moving that it get deferred and it comes back at the next PDC meeting.
Okay, sorry, I thought you said you didn't agree with it.
Sorry, I'm not agreeing with the director's suggestion that it should come back to a normal council meeting, because I have a planning and development committee if you're not going to planning.
Thank you.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My comment is that I'm going to support the deferral, but I'd also like to, if we could, in view of the few of the questions have been asked, that we have a site meeting as well, because I'd also like a site meeting on another one that's going to come. I'd like to add that. You know, my nose if it's not.
Just what purpose for the site meeting? Just to
have a bit of an understanding of what the overall plan is for the area.
Okay. Are you happy to arrange that in the meantime?
Absolutely, Chair, yes.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favour of deferring it to next PDC? Can we get... Yes, if we can get Councillor Kinghorn back in, please. Alrighty, next item is item 2.4, development application DA 550-2024 in brackets 1, 12 to 16 Ash Street. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Duffy, and seconded by Councillor Peterson. Any discussion on this item? Okay, I've got a few questions. I'm going to put them straight to you, Director Hodges. So in terms of the road reserve and the condition that we're trying to retain the trees along the western side, given that the mapping there, got to have a tree protection zone of 5 metres from the trunk. Road reserve is 4.5 metres, and you're trying to protect the trees, but you're going to have to construct. I note there's wording in there about shifting that road a little bit, but surely there's only so much they can shift it to maintain and the tree protection zone and still get a road in there. Correct?
Yep, it's an excellent question. I also put to our staff when I read the report as well, because it is a key part of it, but they assure me that they can tweak the road around in that reserve and maintain that tree.
Okay, and also allow for that for the dirt footpath walkway. That'd be more on the eastern side.
But a dirt walkway on that side. I was told the cul-de-sac bowl could be moved slightly to the east, in with the tree protection zone around. I expect that would be the overall road reserve, which includes the walk.
Yep. Okay. That was my only question. Another discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise a hand. Okay. Item 2.5. Development application DA 578-2024 in brackets 1 lots 21, 23 and 24 Edward Street.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we defer this one for a site inspection as well.
Councillor Duffy, and just for the record, please just address me as chair, not a madam.
I'm happy to second that.
Okay, thank you. Discussion? Yep,
I'm asked a
Councillor
plain
Mallard.
question, if I may, Chair. Oh, sorry.
After Councillor Mallard, but yes, you are next.
Thanks. Just a question or two that I hope might clarify things a bit, because I think maybe there's been a bit of misunderstanding about what's proposed for the development. So through you, Chair, the east side of the land to the east side of Edward Street, where the creek is, there's no plan to cover the creek or concrete it or anything else, is there?
Before I hand over to the director, page 159 in responses to the submissions, it does say it's not intended to be piped, but I did have a similar question about what guarantee do we have that it's not going to be piped, if it's just a tension.
So through you, Chair, the drainage reserve that's identified, say on page 130.
Yep.
A version of the photo montage over at the 128 even. See lot 21 creek line there. That's an existing on-site detention area or retention pond for that constructed many years ago that services Leeward Estate. No intention to change any of that. So some of the waters, so from lots 8 and 9, would run down through that, but it's not changing. There isn't even the question about use of wetlands and things. It's not even being discussed or considered with this application. It just, the use of that land is staying the way it is. Effectively, you've got on the left-hand side of the picture the six allotments on the western side of the Edward Street. Lot 8 and 9, which is the main industrial blocks there at the top of the ridgeline, which is the laydown area right next to.
Yep. So that's the area that's currently being used as a stockpile for culverts and those sorts of things, but they're not for use at that site.
No. That one. It technically recreates also Lot 10 over on the far eastern side, which we did look at for housing some years ago. Quite isolated that block, as we found, and very difficult to service. So whilst the lot is created by the subdivision, there's no immediate plans for that development. Right, the drainage reserve remains as it is because the pond associated with our flooding system. My comment was about the pipe work, not enclosing that creek line.
Okay, thanks for that. Then I think you've already said the use won't change, but so at the moment, the area which is going to become Lot 11 effectively is fenced off and used for, I presume we lease it out for grazing the sheep and horses in that area. Is the intention to continue with that use?
Probably from a maintenance point of view, I'd have to defer to corporate and technical on that one, but sorry, I've only been in there for pollution incidents and I haven't come across any sheep when I've been in there, but there's no intention to change its use from the drainage reserve.
Okay. Probably, and maybe it's something we'll explore more when we have a site visit, but I guess I'm interested in if we wanted to consider an alternative use for that site. That's East Orange Creek. It could be restored as a riparian zone. It could be opened up into a public green space potentially. What would be the path for us to consider doing that? It's probably beyond this DA, but
on DA and the engineers, I'm sure, would have to review it in terms of the flood mitigation strategies for that area. Most of the time, it is creek line that runs through it, and it's certainly got the potential to look at it. Firstly, from the maintenance.
Yeah, so the intention is to keep it as a dry detention basin, not to create an artificial wetland at this stage. And it operates as a dry detention basin with a creek line running through it. To open it up for public use, it would mean we'd have to counterbalance with the lease arrangements that we have with the current leaseholder for grazing of stock in there. Yeah. And also maintain it then ourselves as well.
Thanks. Yeah, look, I'm happy on the basis of those answers. I'd support the motion for a deferral. I'll be interested in a site visit. I had more questions and issues potentially around the trees that are to be largely retained at the moment, but along the edge of proposed Lot 8 and Lot 9, whether they're at risk of being cleared once those sites are being developed, and how we either protect or revegetate in the drainage reserve to sort of make up for that. But I think that's something we can explore with the deferral if it's supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mallard. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Chair, but I will keep my since it's been deferred, I'll raise that at the site visit.
Councillor Peterson.
Well, the only question I had was about the gas storage operation that doesn't what
I'll pass that over to Or back to the CEO?
I'll just briefly mention it. So the proposal would create the lot for where the gasworks is existing. The other separate to this development application, our corporate services team have been working with the proponents or the operators of that site, and they would progress towards getting a development consent for their continued operations there.
Can I ask a question? How did... Just seems a bit odd that you've got something operating there for some time without approval. Do we know, like, I'm not asking for finger pointing or whatever, but have we sort of looked at how that happened internally? And again, I know strategic, operational, but I'm just...
Through you, Chair, I'd say council used to operate it years and years ago. Okay. I suspect that's what it was.
Okay.
Grown leg from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Duffy.
Yes, I'm happy to close the debate. Thank you, Chair. My concern is with this one here, and the reason why I'm asking for the deferral is that I think we need to understand, and I'm never happy when council itself is the actual applicant, and especially when you have two very good business houses come into our a meeting and address and say, hey, we need you to consider a few items a bit more. So I tend to think that's the biggest reason for the deferral. I don't want to impede on the businesses that are already there. And it's because they are employees of have a number of employees of the area. And I think we should make a more informed decision, because it's not a good decision to me if we are the developer and we just run it through.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Before I put it to the vote, I will just want to say a couple of things. Thank Mr. Dobell for speaking as well. Acknowledge that I agree there are some interesting things written in the report, in the submission, that I also don't necessarily agree with, in terms of things like it has limited amenity, but just because it's got about like a wire fence around it doesn't mean it's not still enjoyed by the residents. There are a few things I actually would like to tweak as well, but as Councillor Mallard said, we can discuss that with a deferral. I would like to suggest that we defer to have both a councillor site visit, but also two of the submissions offered us an on-site visit in their submission, and my understanding is that hasn't happened. I would like to request that be looked at by staff in the meantime.
Just have to seek clarification. Sorry, Councillor, is that site visit you're saying? So councillors do a site visit and go to the neighbourhoods, or are you saying
separate
you want
ones.
staff on the site?
So, well, they offered to meet with staff, and that hasn't happened. So I'm just wondering if they could have an opportunity to meet on site with staff as they requested in their missions. And also that councillors have an opportunity at a separate time for a site visit.
Staff can review whether they need to look at the site further. The applications, the assessment report, as far as it goes, is complete. I can ask what engagement they've had.
Anything else? All right, I'll put the motion for deferral. Those in favour? Alrighty, thank you, councillors. That concludes the Planning and Development Committee meeting, with the time being 7:23. I'm going to call on Councillor Peterson to conduct the Finance Policy Committee.
Thank you very much, Councillor McDonald. I'd like to open the Finance Policy Committee meeting 1st of April, with the time being 19:24. I note that Councillor McDonald had a declaration of interest 2.1.2, Councillor Power 2.1.1. Any other declarations of interest that need to be said? Given that, I'll move on to 2.1. So recommendation on page 6. The first part recommends the items to be heard and voted on in seriatim. I have a mover and a seconder with Councillor McDonald and Councillor Mallard. Thank you for that. I'll put the motion. All for, or against, carried. Thank you. So we'll deal with the items in part 2 separately, and the first one will be 2.1.1. If Great. So item 2.1.1 being to donate $1,500 to the Regional Development Australia Central West to contribute of the 10 for 10 program that connects youth leaders with community champions, offering mentoring experiences. Do I have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Greenhouse. Second by Councillor McDonald. Any discussion on this item? Given that, I will put the motion. All for? Against? Unanimous. Thank you. I'd be grateful if maybe just note that Councillor McDonald is leaving the room for her conflict of interest. Wait for Councillor Powell to return. Thank you. So items 2.1.2 is to donate $2,425 to Cantar Community Choir to contribute the ongoing costs of the honorarium paid to the music director. Have a mover by Councillor Greenhouse, second by Councillor Ruddy. Any discussion on this item? Thank you. I'll put the motion then. All for? Any against? Nope. Pass unanimously. If I could ask for Councillor Power to please be informed. So I'll do 2.1.3, which is to donate $2,300 to the Orange North Rotary Club for the higher costs of the Function Centre for educating local children on science and education.
I'll move that, Mr. Chair, with that'll include the 25, 26 and 27 two times, which is a total of about $8,900, I think, is my calculations correct.
So I'm going to have that moved by Councillor Whitten, second by Councillor Duffy, to donate $2,300 to the Orange North Rotary Club for the higher cost of the Function Centre for educating local children on science and education for 4 occurrences over the next 3 years. For discussion, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question, probably through you to either the CEO or one of the directors. Given that we're yet to put our fees and charges up for exhibition and adoption, just wondering how that gets up if we're setting a set amount on it and the fees and charges go up, and there's I'm just wondering what are they going to be short if the charges went up?
Through you, Chair, I think what we do is we don't set an amount. We'll just talk about to cover the higher costs.
Okay.
And therefore, you can assume they will be the higher cost for that year.
Okay.
Can I?
Happy to make that changes to the recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, nod from
on
the
the
seconder
advice
as well.
of the CEO.
Just a point of clarification, just maybe we think we can reword it, because my understanding is what they're asking for is to waiver the fees, and maybe it could be worded in a way that we waiver any fees for those 4 functions. Because it doesn't matter what the amount is, because we're waivering it anyway. It's not although it's technically it is money, but it's not money changing hands. It's for the
in kind.
Yeah, in kind.
The mover and seconder of the motion.
Sorry, for you, Mr. Chair, just ask the director to clarify what that would mean if we just waived it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor. We don't waive fees. We provide a donation to the organisation. So the organisation must pay the fee through our bookable system, and then we provide a donation to them to an equal amount. So we in the proposal that you're talking about, which doesn't have a figure, have to carry a non-disclosed figure for a period of 4 years through our system, which for me is problematic, not undoable, but problematic.
Happy to withdraw that.
Is there a solution?
It's what we've got covers it.
Right.
Because there's no figure named.
But that's
But
but
there- yes.
saying it's creating an issue.
No, the one that the CEO recommended.
Councillor Greenhow.
Yeah, I'd just like to speak for the motion. I think it has a lot of merits, and I think it's really good that the Rotary Club's supporting this opportunity for children and now primary school children to come and explore this type of science. And it'd be wonderful to see more people come to our area for the Nationals. So, yeah, happy to support the motion.
Councillor McDonald.
Just a point of clarification. The suggestion that CEO made, am I correct that the director just said that that creates problems? Is that but not undoable?
Okay. If you would indulge me, could we have the director and ask the director what would be the easiest thing for staff in terms of processing this without a defined amount, without mentioning a defined amount, and therefore not having to talk about price rises, CPIs, interest, reserve bank,
You
etc.
could always just delegate the CEO.
Well,
Approve it.
The easiest way to do this.
the easiest way to do this would be to have a fee and charge that fees for certain clubs were zero, now fees and charges.
Then you would have a motion that says
This
that
club,
zero
that
fee and
zero
charge
could be
applied.
used, could be applied to this particular event.
Can you do that for this application?
Yes? Sorry, I was just looking at the other director who's in charge of the fees and
Can do
charges
it,
for that venue. So I just wanted to get his nod,
So
and
the
he
motion,
said yes.
sorry, Chair. So the motion could be that a zero higher charge be applied to Rotary blah 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 for 4 occurrences over the next period, and that would work for you.
Yes, that would work for me.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Councillor
Good,
Whitman
Mr.
says
Chair.
he's happy with that.
That is-
Councillor Duffy, the seconder, are you happy with that? Yep. Thank you.
I'm always good with
New
policy on the
process.
fly.
Love it.
That's the motion. Any further discussion? Yep. Yes, Councillor Kinghorn.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just if that's what we're doing, how does that impact the budget or the financial implications?
We'll get the director to think that one through too.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can do it in 2 ways. We can either record what the lost income was and report that through as part of the reconciliation of that $80,000 budget or whatever the budget may be in the years to come, or you as a group may say that that's not one that you would like to include in that report and we can keep a tally of it separately. I would not suggest that we wouldn't keep a record of how often this particular waiver fee is being used. That would be remiss.
Councillor Greenhow.
Can I just have a question to the director as well? So this would be very similar to what we do with the neighbourhood centre, as community groups can use that up to 10 times a year without being charged a higher fee. Is that correct?
I'd have to refer to my other director on that, and he's nodding. That one's outside of my directorate, but that director is nodding. So I'd say yes on his
so
behalf.
very similar. Yeah. So we already do that sort of thing.
Any further discussion? Being none, I'll put the motion. All for? None against? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next one being item 2.1.2. There's a recommendation of page 20. I actually would like to move this with an amendment that we support the event. The amount of the remaining funds in the budget available being $3,850. I have a seconder.
I was looking at that.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Any discussion on this proposal? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
I'm just more than happy to look. It'd be lovely if we could actually, if we had the funds to do it. And I note in the staff comment that we can sort of pull from the tourism regional promotions budget yeah, I think we need to start learning to live within budgets. I do actually just have one question, and I'm happy for the director to take it on notice. I'm just curious. I know that this event primarily benefits the Orange LGA, but it does happen outside our LGA. And so do you know if Cabon, Laney have been under their donations, grants, sponsorships? We've got 17,000 now. I'm just wondering whether we know whether any of that is from any neighbouring LGAs but I'm happy to take it on notice.
Thank you, Director Sharp. Any other discussion on this item? Given that, I'd like to move the motion. All for? Any against? Okay, well, thank you, councillors. That concludes Finance Policy Committee meeting, with the time being 19:35. I call on Councillor Whitten to conduct the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. I would like to open the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting the 1st of April, time being approximately 7:36 p.m. No councillors have any pecuniary interests in this item. Section 2 is item 2.1, minutes of the Orange City Council Traffic Committee held on March 18th.
Have you move it?
Been moved by the Mayor.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Peterson. Any discussion on this particular item? There being no discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? The motion is unanimous. Section 3, General Reports. Sorry, Councillor McDonald.
Just a matter arising from that
Sure.
item, please. On page 15, from the minutes of the previous one that were adopted the 18th of February, it's regarding the no stopping signs on Frost Street and Waratah Avenue. I'm assuming the ones that are in place now are the ones that were mentioned in here. Maybe my 10 metres is different than 10 metres actually measured, but they seem incredibly close to Coronation Drive rather than drive down that street this morning and you're still there's still cars parked really, really close to, not inside the no stopping signs, but really close to them. So it's still creating that really dangerous bottleneck. So I'm just wondering whether that could possibly be reviewed again. I know it's only just gone in, but just doesn't seem to have made. Those are the signs that are mentioned.
So you're saying that the parking distance from the intersection at the stop signs is which is legally at 6 metres from memory, but these are now 10? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. If the signs that are in place now are the ones referred to in minutes.
We'll let Mr Greenham enlighten us on that.
I'm happy to review the signs that are there now, just confirm whether they're the ones that were there previously or the ones that are requested.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr Greenham. Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Section 3 is item 3.1, current works. Recommendation is on page 32. Been moved by Councillor Peterson, seconded by Councillor Kinghorn. Any discussion on this item? Councillor McDonald.
One more question, Chair. In terms of the sporting precinct, how long before we start landscaping, tree planting and all that sort of stuff?
We've got Mr Greenham. We've got, Director Maunders coming up to the podium.
Through you, Mr Chair. At the moment, we're finalising the construction tender documents for the landscaping that we can do around the 8 multi-purpose fields that have been constructed. We won't be able to do much around the main stadium nor the athletic stadium because of the development sites. The plan has always been to do that landscaping as we can as soon as the development phases are completed. So I've seen the drafts of that document. We're just finalising it and we'll go out to tender and then we'll We'll do most of that work in-house with our teams, but we will have to have some contractors involved as well.
Thank you.
If we can, usability. Yep.
Councillor Greenhalgh. Thank you, Mr. Maunder.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank the staff for the work that's been happening. It's great to see the music conservatorium coming ahead. The 8 fields are now finished at the sporting complex, and of course the adventure playground, it pretty well much speaks for itself. So thank you to everyone that was involved in that. The numbers were amazing the first weekend. Obviously it was still pretty hot, but there hasn't been one member of our community that I've spoken to, apart from my son, who hasn't been happy with it. And the only reason he's not happy is because it's not what he remembers growing up. So thank you to the staff, and it's been good to be able to deliver something that our community is happy with, and they're going to create a lot of memories moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greenhalgh. Councillor Kinghorn.
Yeah, also about the adventure playground, we went up the second weekend to have a look, and it was hard to get a park. There were lots and lots of people there, which was nice. I've just got a couple of questions about the splash park. There's a drain in topographically the lower side, which is logical. There was a lot of water on the outside of the wall on the top as well, so I'm not sure whether I couldn't see any drainage there, and it didn't seem to matter. There were tiny people just sitting in the puddles playing in the mud, but I did just wonder about whether the drainage was adequate. And the other thing that struck me was where the water shoots up out of the middle. There are some that shoot up a long way and some that shoot up not very far, but there's one that shoots up right through the shade cloth, under the shade cloth, rather than having it sort of outside the shade cloth and the shorter ones going up there. And I was just wondering if that was deliberate and whether it's likely to cause any issues with the shade covering.
Got Mr. Green coming to answer that question. You can, as we did when we were young people, stick sticks down those things to make them squirt harder, which might have happened.
Just
Is that what's happened? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
There's a couple of defects that are being fixed this week with contractors back on site this week. I can't say exactly what they are, but they may be addressing some of those concerns, and we'll continually review it. But essentially, the shade cloth won't get damaged by water hitting it just as much as it would in a storm, for example, with heavy rain or wind. More likely to get more damage in a wind environment than it would through the water hitting it. But yeah, we'll certainly keep monitoring it. I know the kids have had a lot of fun creating little dams on some of those waterways as well. So there are some continual maintenance so that we do unblock some of those dams from time to time as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenham. I might get you to stay there just for a second, unless you like to exercise. Any further questions? Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. My questions are number one about the Brabham Way and when are we going to address the issue of signage as regards some of the signs just up there saying Southern Feeder Road, and also there seems to be a lot of conjecture about the speed limits going all the way through there, coming up from Bathurst Road, from the road to Bathurst all the way down through. There seems to be a little bit of variation there. I'm just wondering if there's some uniformity there at all. And while I'm talking about signage, Springbank Lane is not correct, that signage out there on the road. And I also noticed when you come over the hill from Escort Way, you're coming up 60 ahead, then you hit the 60, and all of a sudden 20, 30 metres later there's 50. Warning sign for that. I think there needs to be a warning sign there. A lot of people are coming over because the police sit right just where the 50 sign is. And you're just a little bit further down in front of the old BB&H chair where Rod Murray used to live.
You got all that, Mr. Greenham?
I'll take some of those on notice and just review. Essentially, certainly the signage along Brabham Way is all in for the speed zone. So initially you come off the Bathurst Road and you're onto an 80-kilometre section, and then it transitions back to a 60-kilometre section. And that's then at every intersection with every minor street along there, there's repeater signs for that 60 kilometre zone through there. The one on Escort Way, I don't know whether you're actually
required under Austroads when you're changing speeds by only 10 kilometres an hour to put a warning sign in saying warning 50 k's ahead if you're already in a 60 zone. But I'll certainly review the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenham. If there's no further questions, I might just speak first, Councillor Judge. A lot of people who've been coming to Orange of late have made the effort to make comment on our beautiful city, and I just want to pass that on to the councillors and the council staff. I travel a fair bit outside of Orange in New South Wales, and the feedback about our beautiful city comes wide and far, and all of that is attributed to our council staff who maintain our city. We don't always get it right. We've got a few things that don't go well, but I just wanted to pass that on to the staff and to the councillors here tonight about all that feedback. One of the questions I'm getting, Mr. Greenham, and I apologise if I've been remiss in attending a forum that addressed this matter already. The lines that are in the streets all over town, up Anson Street, up Peasley Street, they're like parking. They're like these lines that have been set out in a certain area where they look like they're measuring the road or doing some sort of audit of the streets. Do you know what they are?
Yeah, certainly when we're doing Benkelman beaming or things of that nature, they'll mark lines across the road.
They're about a metre long and they're about probably 2 metres apart, all the way up Anson Street, all the way up Peasley Street on either side. Okay. I have to tell people they're not parking lines, right?
They're certainly not.
Well,
I'll take that one on notice and tell you what they are.
Take a few photos and send them.
They wouldn't be Benkelman beaming at 2 metres apart.
Yeah, it could be further, but yeah. I'll send you the pictures. But thank you for Council Judge.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I just got one question for Director Greenham. Talking of signage, the one that's heading up Brabham Way from the hospital heading up towards Anson Street. That sign there merging from 2 lanes to 1, there's still a kangaroo sign there, and you said that was going to be changed to merge to make 1 lane, and that hasn't been changed yet. Is that being done shortly?
I said I'd review it. That's in the old section. It's another Austroads thing there where if you have where you transition from 2 lanes into 1, and you have what they call a zipper or the dotted line that continues through. So clearly gives the direction that the left-hand lane has to give way to the right-hand lane. Where you don't have that, and you've got a short merge after a turning circle at an intersection, you're not actually required to have the merge 1 lane, and essentially it operates just like in Peasley Street as you go through Summer into Peasley. It operates on the basis that the car in front has right of way, whether they're in the left lane or whether they're in the right lane, without that zipper line thing through there. And you don't actually need a sign to say that you're merging. But I'm reviewing that. Certainly wouldn't take the kangaroo sign down because there's still kangaroos along there and they still get hit.
Mm. Yeah, Councillor Judge, I mentioned it to Director Greenham that have seen cars going side by side still up over the crest of the hill past Anson Street thinking they're in 2 lanes because they don't realise that it merges into 1 for some strange reason. Maybe they're tired or something, I don't know. Thank you, Councillor Greenham. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Chair. Just one more question while we're talking about that area. The trees that are on the northern side of Brabham Way in that same strip between Forest Road and Anson, the blackberries are really quite bad in there. Wondering, is that council land? Is that our responsibility to top of or?
I'll review that and just check whether it is actually council land. If it's council land, it's our responsibility to have them sprayed. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you. Alrighty. No further questions. Alrighty. I'll conclude the meeting at 7:49, and I'm now going to invite Recreation and Culture and Services.
You need to put the.
We didn't put the motion.
Oh, we didn't put the motion?
Works,
well, we'll put the motion in.
Works report.
You think we should put the motion? It's optional. It's optional. Yeah, it's at the direction of the chair, but I think we should put it. All those in favour? Against? Carry. Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Alrighty. There's no item. It's back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten.
Staying.
Thank you, councillors. We now resume the council meeting. We go to page 30, item 4.1, notice of motion, audit of shade availability at outdoor council-owned areas. I'm happy to move this. Seems it was myself and Councillor Peterson. Seconded by Councillor Peterson. Any discussion on this item, councillors? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
I actually would just like to request propose an amendment, I suppose, but maybe request that you consider incorporating it. So 1, 2 and 3 remain the same, but with point 4, the council explore financial sponsorship grant funding opportunities to fund the installation of shade shelters and adding in increasing canopy cover at playgrounds. Because this just really ties in with the urban forest strategy that we adopted last term of council. And if we can get money for planting trees, I think it's always a good thing to do. So I was just wondering if you would consider adding that in there.
Yes, I'm happy to accept that. Councillor Peterson? Yes, thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Stedman.
Just a point of interest, I guess it might turn into something, just with some of the sporting grounds, Rowena Oval in particular. Is it not more prudent to just look at places that spectators generally congregate and make sure we're using those areas? So on the, northern end of Rowena, under the trees near the park, a lot of spectators gather there to watch the cricket rather than the other side of the ground with no shade whatsoever. Might be just save us money if we just pop a couple of seats under there and be done with it.
Yeah, we can look at that.
Other areas, I'm sure, apply similarly, but rather than whacking shades up, utilise the shade that's there if we can.
My understanding is that where people are seated, all play areas should have 70% shade. There's also a requirement to have 40% shade cover for where people sit. That is included in the report because it's obviously too extensive at this point in time, but that is a recommendation that is what normally would be the case. So that may answer part of your question, but it's certainly something which could be considered in the future. Councillor, yes. Councillor Greenouch.
Can I just make a comment? Councillor McDonald and I, this was something we were working towards early on from our term. I think it's really important too that to understand we can't do them all at once. So I'm assuming council staff will look at it, but, they'll look at, within a certain distance where we can strategically place some in neighbourhoods so that, within, a 2 kilometre radius, there is a park that's, meets that criteria with shade, and it's sort of balanced across the community as well.
Thank you. I think if you refer to point number 3, the council seek to support a New South Wales Shade Working Group, who will have some input into this also. And Councillor Peterson may recall that when we were at that viewing of the
Onquin Skin Council.
Yes, thank you. That they did discuss those type of things which you're referring to, and very, very keen, as is a number of other businesses. Cancer Care is one of them who did approach me afterwards and said they were really keen to get involved and look at helping funding in some ways, which, obviously they're limited with their finances, but they certainly want to get on board and be part of this, which is, I think, is wonderful that community organisations see the need for it. And as all councillors and staff would know, we all know somebody who has been affected by skin cancer, and it's only appropriate that we certainly push this, and thank you for the staff and those organisations who have got on board. Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, so I was just going to, Yep, I think everyone in the room's quite happy with the idea, but I just wanted to flag the University of Sydney's involvement. So yeah, everyone can put on a hat or sunscreen, but they can't control shade. That's up to us to do that. And the day after the Conquering Skin Cancer fundraiser, surreptitiously I got an email in research projects, University of Sydney medical students and public health students. They have to spend 14 weeks full time on a research project. I did one of med school. It was a complete waste of time. But something like this could actually be useful. We thought they could do the audit, maybe conduct some research and the options available, generate data, come to one of our briefings and present to us. That would be probably quite good for the students to do. Happy to be a supervisor for it. And then I thought, if this works each year, if there's something we find of interest, maybe of the pollens and allergies that are around, might be something about canopy cover, we can just do this on a rolling cycle. So I was quite excited about it and hope it goes through.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously happy to support any preventative things that help prevent health problems. That's good. It's also a lot more comfortable sitting somewhere that's in the shade, forgetting the health aspects of it. I would just, if you don't mind, can we take out the two words "be conducted" at the end of number 1, because it's in there twice and that's annoying me. So
Yes, we just wanted to get our message across there, Councillor.
thank you.
Thanks for picking that up. Just that. Any further discussion? Yeah, Councillor Roddy.
Can I just ask a question? The list of playgrounds that's on page 52, the playground register, there's at least one park missing from there. Is there like a reason why it might not be on there, or is that only some of them? Or
Which one are you referring to as missing, Councillor?
there's one on Seaburn Drive that's not on there, and I don't know if there's more, but I'm just curious if maybe they fall under something different or if it was just missed. Oh, that's okay. So any parks?
Director Maunder.
Yes.
We'll double check that. The listing in the motion only lists the playgrounds that have shade cloth or some tree cover to some degree.
Yes.
And that was our listing of
That's supposed
playgrounds.
to be all of them?
To be, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if there's.
Any further questions, councillors? There being none, I'll put the motion. Show of hands. Unanimous. Thank you. We go to page 67, item 4.2, notice of motion, election priorities. We've got a conflict from Councillor. He's gone. Thank you very much, Mallard. Okay, any discussion on this item? There's a recommendation on page 67. Yes, moved by Councillor Peterson, seconded by Councillor Kinghorn. Any discussion?
Just a question. The email that the CEO sent around, that's the list that we're...
Through Chair, that's the sort of list we're working with at the moment, which was presented to the government portal November last year. They requested a sort of urgent work on what are your priority projects. So that's the best we've got at the moment.
This is like the basis that we're going to work off.
Correct.
Okay.
And I take guidance from Councillor Peterson and Councillor Kinghorn on what process they want to run through this motion.
Thank you.
Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, just to give some background, Councillor Kinghorn and I attend the ARIC committee. The members there spontaneously sort of said that an election priorities motion from council would carry some gravitas, and I think that would be quite useful to put in the media, particularly now with the elections being called. Certainly then we can put to the candidates how they would respond to it. I thank the CEO for that list. There's something nice about the list because it avoids, I guess, political influence from other people. It's come from staff. I would be very happy to regurgitate that, but also quite happy to hear if anyone has different points of view as to that.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd just like to declare that I'm a member of a political party, although I have no involvement in the election. I think it's only prudent that I indicate that. Certainly doesn't impede my judgment on anything, but I just like recorded that I'm a member of a political party. Thank you.
Clear the same, Mr. Mayor, but interests are in benefit of the community of Orange.
Is our mind, councillor? Thank you. Okay, I'll put the motion. A show of hands. Thank you. Yes. Item 4.3, notice of motion, Winter Festival. There's a recommendation on page 69. Councillor Peterson or Steadman, would you like to move your motion?
Happy to.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Mallard is just returning. Apologies, Councillor. Okay, the item 4.3, notice of motion, Winter Festival. Moved by Councillor Peterson, a seconder.
I would like to raise a point, Mr. Mayor. Just, I think, given the new information that's come to light since we raised this motion, that Bathurst Council or Bathurst community have stumped up some cash in our.
Okay, I understand that, but are you going to second the motion before we get in any discussion, because it might be fruitless what you're going to speak about, that's all, but I understand where you're coming from.
I'll second the motion for debate, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so you've got a mover and a seconder for a discussion. Go ahead, continue please, Councillor.
Just, as I said, with the new information that's come to hand, it's probably prudent that we back away from this one, leave Bathurst alone. That's my thoughts.
Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, thanks for that. And certainly it is a fluid situation. It was unfortunate that the day that the cancellation was announced, also the deadline day for us to put in notice of motion for the event. And yep, I'm certainly aware that some components of the regional festival will go ahead. For me, I still think it's common sense just to consider the change of the quite major winter tourism draw card could affect our own fire festival. We can just look as what's going on, and to be honest, that may well have happened anyway, even without this motion. But I certainly respect the sentiments of Councillor Steadman and probably other people as well. Who, we don't want to cause grief for our cousins, but also good to see what they're not doing. Maybe there's a role for it here.
Thank you, Councillor. And before I move on, I'd like to speak against the motion myself. And the reason I say why I want to speak against it is because Orange City Council and Bathurst Council are both members of the JO, which is a joint organisation. And myself and the other mayor from Bathurst, Robert Taylor, are both members of the country's Mayors Association. And as you correctly stated, Councillor, it's not corporate. I don't think it's good policy for us to be taking something of our neighbours when they're in the position of trying to work certain issues out with their own council. They've got some challenging issues that they're dealing with, but my understanding is after speaking to the mayor, and I did contact him directly to tell them my views on what was occurring, which he thanked me for, but he indicated to me that Bathurst Council have attracted a business or a sponsor to keep the skating ring there. This year, they're trying to work through some issues they've got there, and they're looking at signing up for the next 3 years. So I don't think it's prudent that we be treading on any toes, and I'll leave it at that. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, to speak against the motion, more on the wording of it, because it says that the council events team report on the appropriateness options for a winter festival in Orange. We already have a winter festival in Orange. And we've spent, last few years trying to build that up and so that we actually, Orange we have our own identity, our own winter festival. And I mean, I echo the let's kick our neighbours when they're down kind of sentiment, but it's more about the motion itself, because we already have a winter festival. So I'm speaking against it.
Thank you, Councillor Witten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I get where we were going with this originally. And certainly I do still like the concept. We are elected to represent Orange. We need to look for ideas to bring to Orange to grow certainly visitation. But what about those who already live here? There are a number, for children, winter time, festivals. It's still maybe prudent to look at what does it cost to bring an ice skating rink to Orange for our own community use, for our own children. and for those who want to visit Orange, you know. Many years ago, we had roller skating rinks, we had things, all of those sorts of things to do. But certainly, I do know for a fact, Bathurst do put on a great winter festival because my family attend it and love the fact that they have an ice skating ring. But you know, it's certainly something we should look at for Orange. I know probably powering an ice skating rink from an energy point of view, and it's certainly going to be a cost. But the motion's there to investigate. Why not find out what we could do in Orange in that sort of thing without impacting certainly our neighbours down the road.
Thank you. Councillor Power.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to speak against the motion, and I appreciate the honesty of Councillor Steadman in relation to this, because I think that we've got so many events that are happening. And we've got our community saying, how's the funding, how's the funding, how's the funding? We start chucking another one out there and getting staff to go and do a research and everything else that really is going to provide more ammunition, I think. So, but that's one side. The other side is, I think, Bathurst itself and my conversation with the mayor over there, he's really eager to try and get Bathurst back on that even keel again with the situation they are, and that is one of their biggest injections. Is that Winterfest? They live and breathe for it over there. I know they come from all around Western New South Wales and go there just for that. So I just don't want to see something that would be inappropriate towards another regional city out here that will maybe impact, whether we even just do an investigation. It shows that there's an interest there. I'd say cut it off, let them go, and bless them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mallard.
Yeah, thanks. Similarly, I don't support the motion. I would normally be open to asking staff to report on options. It's not asking us to commit with going ahead, but for a lot of the reasons that have already been talked about, I don't think this is an avenue we should walk down at all. I would add to all of those other reasons, we have over the previous term and quite recently as well, been working on the key thing that we need to deal with for winter in particular in this community, which is to have an indoor play facility. That's going to take work, that's going to take money. That's going to be something that we need to do. It's consistent with our community strategic plan, I think, rather than jumping opportunistically on an opportunity to pinch something from another community. We need to focus on what's best for our community. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Greenouch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Probably a comment more than anything. I'm not totally against this. I'm not into stealing another city's limelight as such, but it's no different if a private business approached us, it could even be the people that provide the skate rink to Bathurst, approached us for 2 weeks after they've been in Bathurst to come and set up an indoor ice skating rink at the Naylor Pavilion. Would we turn them away? I don't know. Just think about it.
Councillor Judge.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd probably like to comment as well in instead of going against it. I think what Councillor Steadman's trying to say with this is that the Orange does have a winter festival, and I acknowledge that, but I think the way that Bathurst do it is what he's getting to. It's more a family-orientated winter festival, which Orange probably does need. I think Orange is a lot about wine, about other stuff with the winter festival and events on at night, not involving children. I do understand where Councillor Steadman is getting with that, and I do think, as Councillor Greenhouse said, if the option is to come here and bring something like that after, I don't think we're taking Bathurst's event off them, but I think Orange needs to look at things more for families in the winter festival and the family events for that.
Yeah. Any further discussion? There being none, I will put the motion as put forward by Councillor Peterson. Show of hands for. So for the motion, we've got 4. Show against. The motion is lost. Can we have a look at notice motion, question on notice, small donations, eligibility, item 4.4, there's a recommendation.
I'll just declare an interest, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. Recommendation on page 71. I'll just wait for the councillor to leave the room.
Eligibility of...
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Kinghorn, would you like to ask your question?
Okay, so what data was used in determining the ineligibility of the small donations application for the RFDS fundraising event to be held in Cabon LGA on the 5th of April? Specifically, the assertion that a limited number of people in Orange benefit from the RFD services. Did we obtain patient residency data or estimates thereof from the RFDS? This was tricky because at the time I voted against it because it didn't meet the criteria, as did most people. And as probably most of us did, I felt really bad because it's the Royal Flying Doctor Service and you think, oh, is this okay? But since then, so many people have said the Flying Doctors are always in Orange. And then I found that when I was Googling, I found that article from the CWD saying that they've got a facility to house an ambulance at Orange Airport after entering into a lease with Orange City Council, which made me wonder whether that was still current. And if it is, then it means that they probably do to and fro a fair bit. So, and considering we own the airport, we probably should have data on how often they come here. So I was just curious about how we worked out that not many people in Orange benefit from the Royal Flying Doctor Service, because that was a big impact on the decision not to support this motion initially. That was my question. I'm just wondering what...
I'll refer you to the Director. That's a question.
Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor. In assessing this application, I checked the Royal Flying Doctors website and annual general report. There was no mention of regular flights to Orange, no mention of treatments or clinics in Orange, or numbers of patients who are based in Orange. The website does not state that the website does state that their bases are in Dubbo and in Broken Hill. Orange does not feature on any of the maps that I located on their website or in their annual general report. Given that the application did not meet the policy due to being outside the LGA, which was the first hurdle that I reviewed, and that the requested donation was to an event, not directly to the Royal Flying Doctors, I did not progress any further assessment against the Royal Flying Doctors themselves.
Do they still have the lease with Orange City?
I'd have to take that question on notice.
Any further questions? Yeah, Councillor Greenouch.
A question, but more a statement. After Councillor Judge and I doing some digging in and doing our own research and contacting the Royal Flying Doctors, in 2024 alone, the Royal Flying Doctors Service answered the call to Orange 245 times. That's 245 moments where life and death hung in the balance, where families prayed for a miracle and the Royal Flying Doctors Service delivered.
I just seek clarification from the Director. You're responding to the initial application with regards to the information which was provided in the small donation application. Is that correct?
Correct.
And just so it's clear in my mind, can you just...
So the application was for a fundraising event, which was what I was assessing. I was not considering the donation to the Royal Flying Doctors. If the donation request had have come from the Royal Flying Doctors Association, then I would have been looking at the application for that donation request. I was assessing an application for a fundraising event, which was being held outside of the LGA and therefore did not meet our policies.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to clarify, so it's our Donations and Grants Strategic Policy ST32, correct? And under the general conditions, clause 4.5 that says ineligible applications will not be considered, and ineligibility includes, and then point 4 is fundraising for groups or events outside the Orange local government area. That's correct, is how I've read it on the
Mr. Mayor, that is
on the
correct.
document. And also another criterion there that the applicant must be a not-for-profit applicant. Applicant is not a registered not-for-profit. Is that correct?
I believe that is also correct.
So this is my sense is that the application is being conflated with whether or not we support the RFDS. That is irrelevant. It doesn't matter who that's for. Previous council adopted the donations and grants policy, and you have just been operated according to that policy.
Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ask one more thing.
Yes,
The
Councillor.
application had in it that the Royal Flying Doctor Service visited Orange to help people in Orange 240 times in a year. Would that have made a difference to your recommendation?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it would not have.
Asking the director. Thank you, Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, it would not have.
Councillor Duffy.
Mr. Mayor, have we previously donated funds to other organisations which aren't operational in Orange? I'm going to go back to the one we moved the other week in the council chamber as regards to the event out at Clifton Grove where the people weren't not for Orange. I go back to sponsoring football jumpers from people where only 3 were people from Orange. I go back to other organisations. I know when I was on Cabong Council, I raised $25,000, as with another councillor as well. And we Cancer Care West Lodge as well. And we didn't have that policy then to say, hey, you can't support something in another area and those type of things there. So maybe, does the Royal Flying Doctor say, you know, if so-and-so councillor judge goes to Dubbo and gets hurt or goes to Burke and gets hurt, do they say, oh, hang on, you come from Orange, we don't look after you?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, refer to the one that is relevant for the current policy that I'm aware of. You speak of one for Cabon. I can't comment on Cabon's policies. The one that you comment on that was held at Clifton Grove the event was held at Clifton Grove, which is in our LGA. This event is being held outside our LGA.
Any further questions? Thank you, Director. We go to item 4.5. There's a recommendation on page 73. This is Councillor Duffy. And Councillor Whitten's staying out for this one as well, I understand.
The 2? That's the 2.
Yeah. So this is notice of rescission, small donations, Fairbank and Royal Flying Doctor Service. And this was discussed on the 18th of March 2025. Councillors, recommendation 1 is to determine the items in seriatim. Moved by Councillor Peterson, seconded by Councillor McDonald. We have a mover, and we've got the mover and seconder. Any discussion? Okay, show of hands. Unanimous. Councillors, we go to recommendation number 2.
Happy to move.
Okay, moved by Councillor Greenhalgh. Got a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Judge. Any discussion on this item? Yeah, Councillor McDonald.
Look, I know the deadline was only just missed, but it's still a deadline. And it's been that deadline for more than 15 years. That reason alone, I don't think we should be dealing with it, but that's...
Yeah, Councillor Power, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The deadline is the deadline. We already see it in the report, the time of the email, the phone call, missed phone call. It's after 12. We've known that. Well, I've known it and we've all known that's the deadline. and I just disagree with it. I just disagree with this whole thing coming up again. And then, as the next point, want to change the time. It just doesn't sit right with me personally. There's the deadline there. I've put rescission motions up. I knew straight away that 12 o'clock was it. That night I was working. The next morning we were getting straight to the CEO. We all know that. To change this here, all those missed call at 12:23. Missed call at 12:16. Email at 12:23. We're just breaking the policy that's been in place for, as what the council's already mentioned, 15 years. So it's a no-brainer really for me. So thank you.
It's a great answer.
So I'm going to speak for the matter to be heard, and I'm just going to clarify a couple of things. It was recommended to me for it to be worded like that, to move the time, because a lot of other places you actually have 24 hours. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm still commenting on that. So that was the advice for me for it to be considered. If we had been provided with adequate information, maybe we wouldn't have had to put the rescission motion in, and we were gathering relevant information. If you guys can honestly sleep at night, knowing full well we didn't give it the justice that it deserved.
Councillor, could you not comment on assuming what other councillors are thinking?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We owe it to our community, the farmers, the remote families and children and elderly to ensure critical services continue in Orange. A donation from Orange City Council to the Royal Flying Doctors Service directly would have overcome the assumed pub test of it being held on Councillor Duffy's property. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Would the outcome still be the same if it wasn't being held on Councillor Duffy's property? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, I mean, I voted last meeting against donating money to fundraiser because it didn't meet the requirements, the small donations program. However, on this point too, when I was approached by one of my councillor colleagues, I felt they could have a chance to state their case through a rescission motion. So because of that, I'm happy for them to hear their case for point two.
Thank you. Councillor Steadman.
As noble as this cause is, the reason I spoke up against it is...
Councillor Steadman, we're just talking, sorry if I can just interrupt, we're just talking about whether we can hear it, not the action number 3. So are you aware of that?
Yep.
Okay, continue then.
Well, I don't think we should hear it in that case.
Councillor Judge.
I'd just like to speak for it, Mr. Mayor. Royal Flying Doctor Service is here to assist Ambulance New South Wales and HealthShare New South Wales to provide emergency and non-emergency transfers that operate in and out of Orange.
Judge, we're looking at number 2, not number 3.
Yeah, sorry. I will be for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Judge. Just with regards to it, can I ask the Director what additional information was provided to be able to hear it?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware of any additional information that's been provided to council staff regarding this matter.
Okay, thank you. Okay, councillors, looking at recommendation 2, that council first determine whether to consider the notice of rescission. Any further discussion before I put it? There being none, I will now put the motion. A show of hands for.
Or determining it?
Yes, determining it.
The Councillor Peterson, 4 hands.
Thank you. Show against.
Not
6
to
against.
determine it.
So the rescission is lost. That wipes out 3 and 4, doesn't it?
Correct. In fact, under 2, determined not to consider the
Thank you very much.
5.1.
Can I call the other 2 councillors back, please? Okay, we go to item number 5.1, general reports. Recommendation on page 75, councillors. Progress report, delivery program, operational plan 24-25, delivery program year 3, 6 months from 1 July 2024 through to 31 December 2024. Could I have somebody move the motion? Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Mallard. Any discussion, councillors? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few questions for the relevant directors. Firstly, page 81, the bottom point in terms of the 185 new street trees were planted during the reporting period, and happy to take this on notice. The new trees, are they just in front of new homes, or are they also replacing trees that have died or been removed or thing?
Notice, take it on notice.
Take it on notice
is
is fine. The next one is on page 83, again down the bottom. Just after a bit more detail about where it says complete footpath rehabilitation, repair and maintenance in accordance with the Transport Asset Management Plan. Performance measure is biannual reporting of number of projects delivered, but then under comments it just says works are ongoing. So wondering why? Or should we maybe have dates in there about what meetings those reports came to? Or
this is a half-yearly report. We fully intend to list those projects that have completed at the end of the financial year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next one's a correction, I suppose, page 85. At the top, with collaborate with local police to actively reduce crime rates as reflected in, it says BOSCAR, it's actually BOXAR, it's the Bureau of Crime Statistics and Research. Get our acronyms. Would be wonderful, please. And also there's actually no mention in there about anything about addressing rates of DV and coercive control, which I think should actually be put in there, as well as road safety and other issues. That's my comment on that fella. Right, bear with me, I've got dog-eared pages. On page 122, top of the page where it says deliver the BBRF funded capital improvement program. On the comments it says funding was withdrawn by New South Wales Government due to delay in implementation of the project. What was the delay?
Over to the relevant director. Director Sharp.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was a complex project site in that particular area, and there was a safety concern that was identified during the project, which was not able to be covered by the funding grant that we'd received. So we were able to rectify that, which was actually a fire safety issue. That has now been rectified, but unfortunately the time lapse had occurred and we weren't able to continue the funding. It's a funding that had been going over a number of years, and understandably the funding body wasn't willing to continue that. We have put in some money into the proposed budget to continue that work under our own steam.
Thank you.
Councillor Peterson.
On page 102, it says what further upgrades to the adventure playground is due for completion in third quarter. And page 116 refers to completion of the Southern Feeder Road, which I imagine is complete. Curious to know about the upgrades planned for the Adventure Playground.
Director Maunder.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's just a point in time, Councillor. So this was for the period end December. So at that point of writing the report, the playground upgrades were being conducted, hadn't been concluded. So just a timing difference.
Any further questions? There being none, I'll put the motion. Show of hands for. Councillor Witten's just left the meeting. Let it be known. Unanimous. Councillors, we can go to item 5.2. Recommendation on page 147. It relates to councillor grants received analysis. I have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Greenouch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to thank the staff for the report. It appears that we rank fairly highly, but I do have a question to the Director, if I may, just in relation to the Comparative Council 1 and Comparative Council 2. Is there any reason they can't be named? Because they did give us their data. It would just be nice to know that we're comparing apples with apples and who those councils were, if possible.
Director Sharp.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I chose not to disclose the identity of the councils that were generous enough to give their information at their request. I mean, obviously they, for one of their results were quite close to ours, although not quite as high as ours. But for the other one, particularly the person that was giving it to us was the grants officer. They do have a grants officer, and they were particularly nervous about their performance in that role and didn't want to be publicly named, which I respected.
Is that not something that could be disclosed as a redaction, enclosed?
I would be happy to mention it to you enclosed.
Excellent, thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'd just like to basically commend council staff, because reading the report, compared to councils that actually employ a grants officer, we're kicking butt. And I think it's commendable that you don't even have a dedicated grants officer, but you've still got a success rate of 87%, which I think is fantastic. So it goes to show we don't necessarily need a grants officer at this stage. But thank you.
Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, echo the congratulations and to point out that without so many grants for high success rate, that budget briefing we had earlier today would have been a fair bit more dicey. Thank you very much. It's a real of keeping us above the waterline.
Thanks, Councillor. Any further discussion? There being none, I'll put the motion. Show of hands for. Unanimous. Councillors, we can go to item 5.3. Classification of council land lot 300 DP 1193909, lot 81 DP 1187448, and lot 127 DP 1190845, and lot 95 DP 1200262. Councillors, recommendation on page 151. Can I have somebody move the second?
I've got a declaration in one of these, so I'll just go for all of them. Is that right, or do we have?
Matter for yourself, Councillor. If you feel more comfortable leaving the room,
they're all sort of lumped together, so I'd possibly leave, I would think.
Thanks, Councillor.
If you don't mind.
No.
And Councillor Mallard.
Wait for her to go.
Are you leaving, Councillor Mallard, or?
No.
Sorry. Councillor Kinghorn has left the room. A mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Mallard, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any discussion, councillors? Councillor McDonald.
Just one question through you to the Director. Could you just let us know what exactly can community land be used for? Sorry, wake up. Oh, well, sorry, community
Good
land,
crack.
community land in general, if it's,
I can have a go at it.
can't be sold, is that, sorry?
Yeah, there's a lot more controls around it. So it's things like more community focused, like just when you see on any list, when you look at them, is things like surf life saving clubs. Obviously, we don't have any out here, but it's more those community based basis, and it changes the leasing arrangements that you can have on them. But normally our land that we use as a business tool we'll have as operational. These ones are identified as the on-site detention areas, so they'll always be used for stormwater management. So effectively a park. So that's why they provide them as right to go to community land.
Just a question regarding lot 300, the Carwoola Drive, because that's actually not a detention. That's an incredibly steep block of land. Is that, it was just, you didn't need it as operational? Or? I'm happy to take it on notice. I'm just curious.
I think we will have to take it on notice from memory. I wasn't aware of the report. I've read it, but I wasn't going into the detail of my area. But I actually think there's some large stormwater lines that come through there or something. There's something like that I can recall in that area. So it might have been that, but I'd have to take it on notice and the mapping.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hodges. Any further discussion? There being none, I'll put the motion. Show of hands for. Unanimous. So,
Councillor Kinghorn.
yes, if you can bring Councillor Kinghorn back, thank you. We're now going into closed meeting. Councillors. The Chief Executive Officer will now advise Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any advertised for consideration by a closed meeting of Orange City Council.
No submissions have been received.
In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation 2021, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of kind as referred to in Section 10A(2) of the Act and should be dealt with in confidential session of Council meeting closed to the press and public. Item 6.1, 2324 water consumption charges to Maroona Drive, Clifton Grove. Item 6.2, 2425 first and second quarter water consumption charges, 72 Wentworth Lane, Orange. Item 6.3, 2425 first quarter water sewerage charges, 10 Astor Drive, Orange. Is classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10A(2)(b), the personal hardship of any resident or ratepayer. Item 6.4, Water Management Services Joint Regional Procurement Project is classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10A(2)(c). Information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the Council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. Item 6.5, Tender F4232-1, Active Transport Strategy and Implementation Plan is classified confidential under provisions of Section 10A(2)(c). Information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the Council is conducting or proposes to conduct business, and D2, information that would, if disclosed, confer commercial advantage on a competitor of Council. Item 6.6, minutes of the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee held on the 12th March 2025 is classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10(2)(f), matters affecting security of Council, Council laws, Council staff or Council property. Item 6.7, submission redaction report of 1 April 2025 is classified confidential on the provisions of Section 10A(2)(e), information that would, if disclosed, prejudice the maintenance of law. I have a mover and seconded by going to closed meeting.
Move that way.
Moving by Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor McDonald. If we can just wait for that live stream to be